Alrighty, well, let's transition from the MLB to an NFL mock draft. You've got about 3 months until the actual NFL draft, but it's never too early to start doing mock drafts and getting ready. I will have all the odd number picks, so 1, 3, 5, etc. Ben will have all the evens, and we will just be alternating as we go. We're going to spend about a minute roughly per pick, so not going to go too in-depth today on anybody, but just a good feeler as we get some names to learn and information out there. But I'll get things started with the Raiders at number 1. This one feels pretty much like the easiest pick of the draft. It's Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. Heisman winner, national champion. The Raiders need a quarterback very badly. Geno Smith was just not good last year. And Mendoza is comfortably the best in this year's class. So there's really not a whole lot that needs to be said for this one. This one seems like a lock.
I would agree. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Mendoza is the best quarterback in this draft, and that's what Oakland or Vegas needs at this point in time. Is they need a true quarterback, a true franchise guy. And I think the thing about Mendoza is he's not the kind of guy who's going to get lost in the Vegas lights. He's the kind of guy who shows up to work every day, a true lunch pail guy who buys in.
Yeah, first guy in, last guy out type of guy. Really plays the game the right way. If you know what I'm getting at there.
Yeah.
Then you have
high motor guy.
You have the Jets at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, here I think I'm going to start the Ohio State train. There's going to be a lot of Buckeyes in this first round. They're a really good team this year. It really makes me question. I think you said this to me the other day, how they didn't win it all. I'm going to go Arvell Reese here. He's a true sideline-to-sideline linebacker who's fast, very well built. Maybe there is a little bit of risk with injury and true upside, but I think if you have a good defensive line, he can play really well behind it.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see, what his role is at the NFL level because, like you said, can play off the ball, can rush the passer as well. And this is a Jets team that just kind of needs everything. So without a lack of a true QB2 in this class, with Dante Moore opting to go back to Oregon, I think kind of just going best player available is the way to go for the Jets, and I think that's probably Arvell Reese. So I think that's a good pick there. With the Cardinals at number 3, kind of same thing as the Jets. A lot of ways that they could go. They need a handful of spots. But I'm going to go with who I believe is the best player available in edge rusher Ruben Bain out of Miami. Bain was always going to be a first-round pick and very likely always going to be a top 10 pick. But this college football playoff run just cemented that. Against 4 of the best teams in college football, Bain accumulated 5 sacks and 8 tackles for loss over the last month. They need a pass rusher alongside Josh Sweat, and Bain is, like I said, one of the best overall players in this class. So I think for whoever the Cardinals hire as their new head coach, getting a guy like Ruben Bain is going to help him out quite a bit.
If we were doing this probably 4 or 5 months ago, Ruben Bain would have been my first guy off the board. I think he is that kind of player, just the best available guy and a true beast off the edge who makes things happen.
And then, Ben, you have the Tennessee Titans at number 4.
Yeah, for this one, I'm going with an explosive receiver. My favorite receiver in the draft, and something that I think if Tennessee can pair him up with a young quarterback. I know they just hired Robert Saleh the other day, which isn't necessarily awesome for Cam Ward, so they're going to make a rebound move here. They're going to get a guy who is awesome for Cam Ward and go with my favorite receiver in this whole class, Jordan Tyson. He's a little wiry, he's fast, he's strong. He can just play a high level of football in any receiver slot. He was a little bit hurt this year, but he's going to make up for it next year.
Yeah, I think the Titans are kind of in a tough spot because I feel like there's kind of I shouldn't say big 3 because they're not taking Mendoza, but ideally, I think Tennessee probably wants Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain, especially with hiring Robert Saleh, a defensive guy. But it never hurts to draft a high-end wide receiver for your young quarterback. And I'm not as high on Jordan Tyson as you are, but the traits are absolutely there. He's got great size, great speed, great route running. Injuries are really kind of the only concern for him. But if he's on the field, he's going to be a wide receiver 1. So for a Titans team that needs a true wide receiver 1, I think that pick makes sense. Mm-hmm. Then I have the New York Football Giants at number 5. We are going with Francis Maui-Noa, an offensive tackle out of Miami, the second Hurricane off the board. I thought about going with Carnell Tate here, but I think the main focus for John Harbaugh should be protecting Jackson Dart. He took 35 sacks this year, and that's factoring in that he didn't even start the full season, along with taking a bunch of other hits as well. I remember that one on, I think, Monday Night Football against the Patriots where he was running to the sideline and just got absolutely obliterated. that needs to stop. He needs to be on his feet. Maui Noah has been the top offensive lineman in this year's class for about a year and a half at this point. And the Giants have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, but it works perfectly because Maui Noah has been starting at right tackle for the Hurricanes. So I think this is a perfect fit for the Giants.
Yeah, another awesome Miami product. I mean, we should have seen these signs that they were going to go pretty deep this year with how many guys they've had ranked in the top 10, 15 in this draft for a year plus. Now I know is a guy that I think is going to be huge for the Giants. Like you said, Jackson Dart, we saw him this year, and we saw what Jackson Dart's made up. He's going to be a phenomenal quarterback in this league, but he likes to play hero ball. He likes to run around. He likes to maybe do some stupid things that he's not supposed to sometimes. And a guy like Maui Noah, having him there playing that blindside role would really be great for a young quarterback like him.
And then, Ben, I will send things back your way for the Cleveland Browns at number 6.
Yeah, I am going to go wide receiver again. And I think this is a great fit. Not only are you going to check the box of getting a contributor for your team and a great player, but you're going to check the hometown box too. Carnell Tate out of Ohio State is my 6th overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have lacked a true elite wide receiver these last few years. Jerry Jeudy was great in 2024, was kind of sporadic this year. Obviously, they had the breakout of a guy like Harold Fannin, who looks to be their legit tight end of the future and a real true talent. But a guy like Carnell Tate would give them a legit wide receiver one with great hands, great size, great speed, who would show up every single day and be a legitimate Pro Bowl talent.
Yeah, and if the Browns are going all in on Shedeur Sanders, which I don't know that they are, but assuming they don't take a quarterback at number 6, why not give him one of the best wide receivers in college football? It was a little bit of an unfortunate situation for Tate. Obviously, he was behind guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jeremiah Smith for his entire college career, but still had really good numbers for the Buckeyes over the last 2 years, put up great numbers as a sophomore and then once again as a junior. And like you said, great size, great speed. He's got all the traits. So I think that's a good fit for the Browns at 6. With the Commanders at number 7, like I've been saying for a few teams, this is a Commanders team that needs help at a lot of different spots, but desperately need a pass rusher. And so I'm going to go with David Bailey out of Texas Tech. He was arguably the best edge rusher in college football this year. He totaled 14.5 sacks as well as 3 forced fumbles. He was the best player on one of the best defenses in college football. He's a little bit on the smaller side for a true 4-3 edge rusher. I want to say he's 6'4 or 6'3", 250. But he plays above his size, and considering how badly Washington needs a true edge rusher, I think this would help Washington and Dan Quinn immensely.
I mean, you just gave him the perfect sales pitch. He was the best defender on a defense that had a linebacker that people were giving legitimate Heisman votes to. David Bailey is a beast. He plays above his size, 14.5 sacks. You plug him into that Washington D-line, might take a little bit, but once he gets going, he's not going to stop.
And sticking with the defensive line theme, Braden, you had the Saints at 8. Or Braden, Ben, you had the Saints at 8.
Honored to be in the same conversation. But I went kind of best available player here. I think Peter Woods is a guy from Clemson for the Saints that can play the interior of the line. He can get out there, play the edge of the line. Regardless, he's going to make a difference, make some plays. He can be the guy that's breaking up runs, or he can be on the pass rush with ease. He's just the best available player at this pick. And the Saints kind of don't really have a whole ton going for them defensively right now.
Yeah, and I'm upset that you took him because I wanted to take him with the Chiefs at the 9th pick. But yeah, this is a guy who I was hoping the Vikings would end up getting if they hadn't won every single game after being eliminated. But yeah, Peter Woods is a phenomenal player. He's another one of those guys that's been in the top 10 conversation for the last year plus. And for a Saints team that really kind of started to show things offensively, defensively, they need some help in grabbing the best, well, maybe not the best defensive player on the board, but one of the best defensive players on the board at the most desperate spot for the Saints defense makes a ton of sense. So I love that pick. And then with the Chiefs at number 9, I couldn't go with Peter Woods. So I'm going to go with an offensive tackle here out of Utah, Spencer Fano, one of the 2 Utah offensive tackles that we'll talk about in this episode. The Chiefs are in a weird spot, but I think what they ultimately need to do is just kind of go with best player available. And I don't know that for them, that's Jeremiah Love. It very well could be, but I don't know that a running back is what they should be addressing inside the top 10 here. Jawan Taylor will be an unrestricted free agent after this season. And at this point, keeping Patrick Mahomes healthy needs to be the number 1 priority after his ACL tear. It's not a sexy pick, but it's a necessary one for Kansas City. And Fano can play tackle or guard. He's very versatile. He played both at Utah. So I think this is a good pick for the Chiefs.
Yeah, you say this isn't a sexy pick, but a lot of the time when you're picking offensive line, it really isn't. And those are the picks that make the biggest impact down the road. Like you said, Mahomes, his line a few years ago was significantly better than it was now. They haven't been able to afford to pay that offensive line, so it broke up a little bit. Spencer Fano is just a guy who's going to come in, go to work every day, and protect his quarterback. So I love that pick.
And then Ben,
At
you
10
had
here?
probably my favorite pick of the entire draft.
This is mine as well. Like you just said a few seconds ago, you thought Peter Woods wasn't the best available defensive player on the board. Well, I'm going to pick the guy who is, and he's going to plug right into a defense that was, to be quite frank, abysmal this year. The Bengals defense has been terrible. They're going to go and grab Caleb Downs from Ohio State, who's probably not just the best defensive player in this draft. He's probably the best player in this draft. But you're getting him at 10 here because you don't want to pick a safety top 5, obviously. He's sliding to Cincy. They're going to get a slam dunk pick, a future Pro Bowler, all pro. The list goes on.
And this is the guy I wanted the Vikings to end up with as a Vikings fan, because in a Brian Flores defense, he would be so good. But I mean, we've seen him from the minute he got to college football at Alabama. He was one of the best players on that defense. And then Saban retired. He transfers to Ohio State, and he's just immediately the best player on that defense as well. He can play safety. He can play corner. He can play man-to-man. I mean, he can be a linebacker in run defense. He can do it all. So this is a very, very easy pick for the Bengals. And Caleb Downs would probably become the best player on that defense immediately as a rookie. So that's an A-plus pick for the Bengals if that winds up happening in the actual NFL draft. Sticking with defensive backs, the Dolphins are going to go with Mansour Delane, a corner out of LSU. Their new head coach, Jeff Hafley, is a defensive guy, of course, coming from Green Bay as the DC there. And this Dolphins secondary needs some help. Delane is my cornerback 1 of this year's class. I know a lot of people have Jermon McCoy in that, but Delane is my guy. He's a 4-year Power 4 starter in college, spent 3 years at Virginia Tech, and then transferred to LSU this past year. He only allowed 13 receptions all year. And he's got good size at 6 foot, 195. He's also a solid tackler. So I think Jeff Hafley would love having Mansour Delane in the secondary.
I think for a lot of people, Delane is a guy who kind of slipped through the cracks in all of the recent turmoil at LSU this year with the firing of Brian Kelly and obviously the kind of scandalous hiring of Lane Kiffin, I would say. But Mansour Delane is a guy who is incredibly talented. And like you said, a lot of people like Jermod McCoy over him. For me, Jermod McCoy might be the number 1 corner if we were able to see a full season out of him this year, but we didn't. So Mansour Delane's the guy, and I think him ending up in Miami is a great landing spot for a team that doesn't have a good secondary and really just needs help rebuilding that defense.
And then, Ben, fantasy football fans are going to love this pick at 12 with the Cowboys.
I love this pick. I love this pick, and I love my 14th pick here. I think they're absolutely need-based, but also they're going to be game changers. We were just talking about how the Chiefs would rather pick Spencer Fano than Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love would be a waste in the Chiefs offense. You know it. I know it. They don't scheme running backs like that. But you know who does? The Dallas Cowboys. And this guy would be terrific. Jeremiah Love to Dallas. Not only would Cowboys Nation love this pick, but on top of it, like you said, fantasy heads would too, because that's something they've really, truly been lacking is a true running back 1. And guess what? Rico Dowdle became one this year, and he didn't become one in Dallas. So they really, truly need that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rico Dowdle. I mean, he ran for 1,000 yards behind the Dallas O-line. Javonte Williams, who a lot of people wrote off, was like a top 10 fantasy running back for Dallas this year.
I love Williams, but I think it's coming. It's going to eventually for him come back down to earth, and Jeremiah Love's just one of those guys you cannot pass up on.
Yeah, and Williams may not even be back in Dallas, and Jeremiah Love is far better either way. So this would be a slam dunk for both Love and the Cowboys, so I love that pick there. At 13, the first of the Rams' first-round picks. This one comes from the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to be going with QB2 of this class. It's Ty Simpson out of Alabama. I love this fit for both Simpson and the Rams. You've still got Matthew Stafford for another year, but his contract is up after 2026. I think this is the perfect time to bring in a quarterback, let him develop in Sean McVay's system, and learn from Matthew Stafford for a year before giving him the reins. Simpson's season was very much a tale of two halves. He was looking like the number one overall pick for the first half of the year. Then there were some rumors that he had a back injury in November, and whether that's true or not, his second half of the year was not nearly as good. But having watched every single throw Ty Simpson made this year, he can make all of them. He's extremely smart, and I think he could do wonders in a Sean McVay offense.
Yeah, this is a really interesting pick to me, Sam, because I feel like it could go either way, but I do kind of like it for exactly the reasons you described. He has the upside. He can make every throw. 6 weeks into the year, every mock draft you would read would have Ty Simpson at either 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
He was like a lock to be in there. The back half slide was a real thing, though, in the Indiana game. He obviously did not look pretty, but I do think he is a guy that if you're in the Rams position where you have a chance to get a potential franchise QB at 13, sit on him a few years and let him actually marinate behind a legit Hall of Famer in Matthew Stafford, he could be pretty good. So I don't hate that pick.
And then, yeah, Ben, you teased your 14th pick a little bit here. Who'd you go with?
One of the biggest breakout stars of this college football season, a guy who won the Biletnikoff Award, and Makai Lemon, a true star at USC. I'm pairing him up with Lamar Jackson. I think when you get an athlete like Makai Lemon and an athlete like Lamar Jackson together on the field, they're going to make some music together, and it's going to be a sweet symphony in the post-John Harbaugh era in Baltimore.
The only concern that I would have is how Zay Flowers and Makai Lemon would play together, but I think you can put Zay more on the outside, whereas Lemon's going to be more of a slot guy. You pair both of those guys with a guy like Rashad Bateman, who can stretch the field, and that's a recipe for success with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So I like that pick
Mark
a lot for the
Andrews
Ravens.
and Isaiah Likely. You got all the weapons in that case.
Yeah, that's a damn good offense for Baltimore next year. So I like that pick a lot. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick 15, they're going to be going with a second Ohio State linebacker in Sonny Styles. Styles might be a top 10 talent in this class, but he's overshadowed by his own teammate in Arvell Reese. Tampa needs a linebacker very, very badly. Levante David is an unrestricted free agent. The Bucs will need to replace him, and Styles is a great run defender. He had 11 pressures on the course of the year as well. I think he and Todd Bowles would be a great pairing, and it's not often that you see a linebacker go this high, but Sonny Styles is that good.
Yeah, he's absolutely that good. You highlighted the run defense. You haven't even talked about the pass defense, which is terrific as well. This is a guy who came into college as a safety. He can play that position. He moved down to linebacker with Ohio State as he got there. I remember him a few years ago. He was a 5-star safety choosing between Notre Dame and Ohio State. He chose right. He chose the place he was going to get developed, the place he was going to win a national title. And now here we are. And I would agree he is a top 10 talent in this draft. He was overshadowed by Arvell Reese. And if Tampa gets him at 15, you're not only getting a terrific linebacker, you're getting a linebacker who can drop into pass coverage with ease.
I'll be honest, I did not know that he was a safety initially, so that's even more reason to like him. But Ben, you are back on the clock with the Jets' second first-round pick at 16.
Yeah, so the Jets are getting this one from Indianapolis, and this is kind of another interesting thing for the Jets, where it is kind of like they're picking best available. I feel like the Jets are in a position where they can't really do anything but pick the best talent on the board. And in my opinion here, that's Denzel Boston. They're getting a guy that can line up right next to Garrett Wilson. He has that size. He has that speed. He's a true pass catcher out of the wide receiver factory that's been the University of Wisconsin or Washington. I wouldn't even dare say that about Wisconsin. Washington just keeps pumping out true wide receiver talents, and I think he's a guy that would just be getting a best available talent for whoever plays quarterback for the New York Jets next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the trio of Garrett Wilson, Denzel Boston, and Adonai Mitchell, who, if he can take a further step in year 3,
Mitchell.
I think that would be a really nice wide receiver trio for whoever New York trots out at quarterback next year, because it's not going to be a rookie, more than likely, with both Simpson and Mendoza off the board. With the Detroit Lions at number 17, I mentioned his name a little bit earlier. It's going to be Jermod McCoy, corner out of Tennessee. I'm not sure what to feel about him. Like I said, a lot of people have him as the corner 1 in this class. But it's just so tough because, like you said, Ben, he did not play at all in 2025 with a torn ACL. Amik Robertson is an unrestricted free agent. There's still question marks on Terrion Arnold. And I don't know that you want DJ Reed as your second corner going forward. McCoy is still extremely young. He'll be 21 in August. Fun fact, we actually share a birthday. I found that out as I was doing some research on him. But you don't need to rush him back if you're Dan Campbell. He started as a true freshman at Tennessee and was one of the best corners in the country as a sophomore. This feels like a Dan Campbell pick, and so I'm going to make it for him.
Yeah, this feels like a pick for me where it's hope that's laced with a lot of knowledge. And you're hoping, obviously, that he's going to be as good of a player as you think he is, but you have the knowledge that he can reach that level. And like you said, we don't know how good he's going to be after a year with torn ACL. He might be way better than Mansour Delaney at this point. We don't know. He's just been out. And I think this is a Dan Campbell pick. And I think it's one of those Dan Campbell picks that he hits out of the park, unfortunately. I like this pick.
And then, Ben, you have our Vikings at number 18.
Yeah, and this is a pick. I was really happy when we were making this mock and I was able to get a legitimate defensive back to fall in my lap. I think that is still a big need for Minnesota, is a true number one corner. And this is a guy who has that potential. His brother has obviously shown that he's capable of it in Atlanta. I'm picking Avion Terrell here out of Clemson. We're getting another Terrell brother in the league. He's just as talented and he could be just as dominant.
Yeah, the Terrell family is doing something right. They just breed defensive backs, it would appear. But yeah, this is a Vikings team that desperately needs help in the secondary. I was pounding the table for them to draft Nick Eamon-Wari last year in round 1. And obviously they waited on defensive back for a little while. That cannot happen again this year. And so I think that's a very good pick at number 18 for them. Yeah. With the Panthers at number 19, this feels like a best player available spot for them. I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk, an edge rusher out of Auburn. Carolina needs a pass rusher very badly, and Falk is probably the best one available at this point. He only had 2 sacks this year, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. He had 29 pressures on the year. He was very good in the run game as well. He has outstanding size at 6'6", 285. I thought about going with Kenyon Sadiq here, but I think a pass rusher is the bigger need for Carolina, so I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk.
Yeah, I mean, they traded Brian Burns a few seasons ago, and that has left a huge hole for them for a true dominant pass rusher. And this is the kind of guy who can fill that. Like you said, terrific size. He can play in the run game, but he can come off the edge and have that dominance of a true number one pass rusher. And I think you're just getting one right there with Carolina. I like that pick.
And then, Ben, you went with another edge rusher with the Cowboys at 20.
Yeah, I'm getting a guy that, for me, kind of fills a need. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys this year have bulked up. They've gotten Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams to play down the middle for a great 1-2 punch at defensive tackle, but now they need a true edge rusher. They have this pick from Green Bay with the Kenny Clark-Micah Parsons trade. They're going to pick Cassius Howell here out of Texas A&M. He's the best edge rusher available on the board, and I think he's just the kind of guy who can come in and make the most impact while also staying a hometown hero there.
And I'm surprised there hasn't been more buzz around Cassius Howell because he was fantastic at Texas A&M this year.
Yeah.
For a very good A&M defense. For a Cowboys team that needs a pass rusher at this point, I think that's a very good pick for them after addressing the offensive side of the ball with their first-round pick, or their first-round pick, that is. With the Steelers at 21, I'm going with the other Utah offensive lineman, Caleb Lomu. I highly doubt that Pittsburgh will reach on a QB here. That is assuming Aaron Rodgers is not back. So why not opt to protect his successor? Lomu played 818 snaps at offensive tackle this year, did not allow a single sack. I think this would be a great pick for the Steelers as well because it would allow Broderick Jones to slide back to right tackle where he's used to playing. You can bump Troy Fautanu inside to right guard, and then Lomu could become the left tackle. Pittsburgh could also go defensive back here, but with how many have already come off the board, I think the focus should be on the offensive line and protecting the next quarterback in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to go with Lomu.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick for you, Sam. I think this helps them build up that line for the future of this franchise, whether that's at quarterback or it's in the backfield. But I think the biggest thing is Pittsburgh is in no position to rush the quarterback find. I mean, they did that with Kenny Pickett, and now he's playing third string for the Raiders. So let's just kind of see where it takes us. It's okay to wait. It's okay to build a team up before you really get that franchise guy. And there's going to be quality quarterbacks every offseason that are looking for a one-year deal to prove themselves. You can ride that until you find the real future in Pittsburgh.
And then, Ben, you're continuing the offensive line train with the Chargers at 22.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers, they have the great tackles in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. They have the franchise quarterback. They have the franchise running back. It doesn't really seem like their offense needs much. So I'm going to have them just grab a really steady lineman here. They're going to grab an interior guard, Ola Loani from Penn State. This is a great pick for the Chargers. They're going to end up getting a stable guy who can play right in between those big tackles, who has a lot of size himself.
Yeah, and this is just such a Jim Harbaugh pick. Obviously, like you said, you've got the tackles and Slater and Alt. That is, I guess, assuming that Slater comes back fully healthy from that patellar tendon deal. Yeah, but I think this is a great fit for a Chargers offensive line that we saw without those two tackles really struggled in the postseason. So protecting Justin Herbert, giving Omarion Hampton another piece in the run game, I think that's a great pick for the Chargers. With the Eagles at number 23, I'm going with Kenyon Sadiq, a tight end out of Oregon. We were saying the other night when we were making our picks, this is such an Eagles selection. Best player available from a powerhouse school. Sadiq is a mismatch at tight end. He is 6'3", 245 with good speed, good route running. He's also a great blocker in the run game, and we know how much the Eagles love pounding the rock with Saquon Barkley. Dallas Goedert is also an unrestricted free agent, so from that perspective as well, Sadiq would make a lot of sense. I think the Eagles would be thrilled if Sadiq is there at number 23.
Man, the rich get richer with this pick. I just think this is an ecstatic pick. You're replacing Dallas Goedert. You don't even need to bring Dallas Goedert back if you're drafting a Kenyon Sadiq. Yeah. You're taking that money off the books because he's going to go get paid by somebody else. And you're getting, like we said, a true top-of-the-line talent from a big blue blood school where it really does fit that best available box that Philadelphia seems to love to check every spring.
And then, Ben, I know this pick hurt you at number 24, but who'd you go with?
I mean, everybody sees the Hawkeye behind me, but I'm only going to say his name. I'm not going to give you a commentary. I don't like this pick. I don't think it's going to work out. I honestly don't think he's that talented, and I've had a lot of Alabama fans say that there are some flaws in his game. I'm going Caden Proctor here to the Browns. It is a good fill for them. They need an offensive lineman. He is the best on the board. I have some personal feelings against him, and I don't think he's going to be that talented. But Sam, take it away.
Well, yes, for anybody not aware of the Caden Proctor saga at Iowa, he committed to Alabama out of high school. After Saban retired, he entered the portal.
To Iowa.
Yeah, committed to Iowa in the portal as well. And then after about a month at Iowa, he decided to re-enter the portal, come back to Alabama, kind of screwed Iowa a little bit with some NIL stuff. So not exactly a great deal there, but there are certainly some flaws in Caden Proctor's game. Like you said, struggles with speed rushers. That goes back to all the way to his freshman year. Didn't really get a whole lot better 3 years later, but there is a lot of potential. He's got great size, great athleticism. So for a Browns team that needs an offensive tackle, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, with the Bears, will also add Proctor's very raw. Proctor's very raw, but he has the tools to be something that's incredibly special if they can actually get him to buy in.
And then, yeah, with the Bears at 25, this needed to be something along the defensive line. I debated going with Caleb Banks out of Florida, but I ended up going with TJ Parker, an edge rusher out of Clemson. The stats from this season, much like Keldrick Falk, don't tell the full story. He only had 5 sacks, but 41 total pressures over 325 pass rush snaps. That's roughly 1 pressure every 8 rushes. Not too shabby. He was absolutely nuts as a sophomore last year. He had 11 sacks and 6 forced fumbles in 2024. Pass rusher may not be the biggest need in Chicago, but it is a need. And there's a lot of potential with TJ Parker, especially on a team with an upward trajectory like the Bears. So I think this is a pick that Dennis Allen would fall in love with if he's back.
I like this pick a lot. I think TJ Parker, I mean, he's been a very big name since he was in high school. He's the kind of pass rusher who's a creator. He doesn't just go for the sack. He goes to cause mayhem. That's what he's looking to do out there. He's just a blitzkrieg of things happening all at once. You know what I mean? He's just a huge thing happening. And I like him because he's one of those picks to me that kind of reminds me of the Eagles a little bit, where it's like, this is a guy who we don't know where he's going to play. He might play edge. We might make him play outside linebacker. We're not really sure, but he's going to make an impact regardless because he's big, fast, and he's going to hit that blitz hard.
And then, Ben, who will be the first Bills selection of the post-Sean McDermott era?
This is a pick that I think a lot of people, it might be an interesting pick right now. Terry Pagula the other day obviously put sophomore wide receiver Keon Coleman completely on blast and said that he wasn't really the guy that we wanted to draft. He was just trying to be a nice guy about it. Well, I think that's a little bit bizarre. So we're going to go with another wide receiver here. I really liked this was probably overall my favorite receiver in this entire class, not just because of the production, just because when you watched him play football, he was making a play every single time he touched it. Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M had a brilliant season for them. And I really think if he gets into Buffalo, he's one of those receivers who can play in multiple spots and really make an impact for them.
Yeah, I love this pick. Concepcion, going back to his time as a true freshman at NC State, just immediately dominated. And, he was a great receiver. He got a lot of work in the run game as well. I think this is a pick that fits a Bills team and fills a Bills need at wide receiver. So I love that pick for them. With the 49ers at number 27, I don't love this pick, even though I'm the one that made it. But it's Akeem Mesidor, a second edge rusher out of Miami. Just like his teammate, Ruben Bain, he significantly improved his draft stock in the college football playoff. He finished with 12 and a half sacks this year, which was actually 3 more than Bain finished with. The downside here is that Mesidor will be 25 at the time of the draft, but he is clearly NFL ready. And for a team that had Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams both suffer season-ending ACL tears, I mean, who knows if those guys get back to 100%? You like to assume they do, but you don't know that. So San Francisco needs somebody that can be a true immediate pass rusher week 1, and Mesidor can do that. So I think this is a need-filling pick for San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree. It's a need-filling pick, and obviously it gives them a lot more depth than they've had before. It's a guy who can bounce around and play multiple positions and, kind of be an impact player wherever you put him. I am also in agreement with you. I don't love the age, but honestly, in this day and age with guys like that, age is just showing that they're more NFL ready. So at this point in the draft, when you're San Francisco and you already have such a good football team, there's not a ton of great receivers available for you here. So I would pivot to Mesidor as well.
Then, Ben, you had the Texans at number 28. Who are they going with?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go another guy out of Ohio State here. This was a guy that played in front of Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles last year. He's a guy a lot of people think could go earlier in this draft. I saw him in a lot of top 20s. I saw him in a lot of early 20s. Caden McDonald here to the Texans. He's an interior defensive lineman with a lot of size, but he's got speed too, and he can really play. He can pass rush, run block, just a very impact defensive lineman.
Yeah, and we know how good this Texans pass rush duo is in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. But the interior of that defensive line has a lot more question marks. And so getting a true first-round talent in Caden McDonald with a lot of raw upside, I think is a great pick. We know DeMeco Ryans is a defensive guy. They could opt to go offensive line, but I think with how many guys we've seen come off the board at the offensive line, I think D-line makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So I like that pick for the Texans. With the Rams at number 29, their second first-round pick and their own first-round pick, they're going to go with Brandon Sissy, a corner out of South Carolina. I've seen him going as high as top 20, and I've also seen him outside of the top 50. So this is a bit of a shock pick. But Darius Williams will be 33 next year and entering a contract season. There's not a whole lot of other glaring needs for this Rams team, quite honestly. Maybe wide receiver, but we've already seen 5 taken in this mock draft so far. So I don't really feel like reaching for another one. Sissy has struggled with giving up long plays. His average depth of reception that he gave up this year was over 20 yards. But assuming he's not thrusted in right away, I think that should be able to get cleaned up with Chris Shula and that defense. So this is kind of a draft and stash pick right away for the Rams, but I think it's one that could benefit them in the long run.
Well, for starters, finding out that Darius Williams was 33 years old is truly shocking today. But I would say that the Rams are also in a similar position to other teams where they can draft and stash. At 13, we're going to go Ty Simpson here. We're going to let him marinate behind Matt Stafford. Let's take Brandon Sissy, too, who really only has a few flaws. Now, I get that they're pretty big flaws, but if you can get those taken care of, you have a really good defensive back. So I think both of those are great picks for the Rams.
And I should note that while picks 29 through 32 are not set in stone, Ben and I are going off of projections for the rest of the playoffs. So we've got the Rams at 29, Denver at 30, New England at 31, and Seattle at 32, just to get that out there. But Ben, I'll send it back your way for the Broncos at number 30.
Yeah, at 30 here, I'm going Caleb Banks out of Florida. He's a guy who can play 4 defensive line slots. He's a true D lineman while also being able to come off that edge. I really like this pick for Denver. I think they're a really great team, as we just saw this year. Obviously, the only thing holding them back right now is the Bo Nix injury, but you're just getting a true impact player who can kind of take off from some of those older defensive linemen and almost make a change of guard for him.
Yeah, and we saw how dominant the secondary is with Pat Surtain and company. I think adding to that defensive front, if you opt to go to the defensive side, is a great pick. And Caleb Banks is a first-round talent, one of the very few bright spots for the Florida Gators this year. So I think that's a very good pick for the Broncos at 30. My last pick of the draft, the Patriots at 31. They're going to be going with Emmanuel Prignone. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. An interior offensive lineman out of Oregon. Same thing as the Rams. I would love to go wide receiver here, but there just isn't one that I want to take this high. Prignone allowed 3 total pressures all year, did not give up a sack, and was a big part of the reason Oregon had one of the best rushing offenses in the country. You know you got something special in Drake May, and Mike Vrabel clearly wants to pound the rock. Prignone seems like a perfect pick to keep Drake May upright, as well as continue to establish the run. I think it fills a couple of needs offensively for New England.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You got to protect your quarterback. The Patriots have gotten significantly better in their pass blocking as the year has gone on this year, but it never hurts to be even better on the offensive line. And like you said, let's establish that run game. We have some young backs in New England. We have a little bit of a veteran in Ramondre Stevenson, who's never really had that crazy year, but we've got a young guy in Travion Henderson who's going to be very good. Let's establish that. Let's get out of the dark ages for the Pats run game. Let's bring it back to something that they can be proud of again.
And then the final pick of the mock draft, Ben, the Seahawks at number 32. Who are they going with?
Man, Seattle looked awesome this year. The defense was outstanding. They just destroyed the San Francisco 49ers. This is a Seattle Seahawks pick for me. This is building through the back end. Let's go Colton Hood here out of Tennessee. He stood out this year in the absence of Jermod McCoy. He was really solid, and he's a Seahawks pick. You know what I mean? We're going to get a really good corner here who's going to hit hard, play good in coverage, and make an impact.
And it's kind of funny because as good as Seattle's defense was, like their corner play was not exceptional. And it's fitting because with Tennessee as well and Colton Hood, the Volunteer secondary was pretty horrendous for SEC standards. And you could have been one of the best with Jermod McCoy being healthy as well. But I digress. I agree with you. I think this is a very fitting Seahawks pick to just add to what was the best defense in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
So I love that pick for the Seahawks.